This audio is brought to you by Muslim Central. Please consider donating to help cover our running costs and future projects by visiting www.muslimcentral.com/donate.
Alhamdulillah, very interesting topic today, increasing self-esteem by Sister Halil Banani, inshallah. Sister Halil Banani has a master degree in clinical psychology with 18 years of experience working with a couple of individuals. She was a featured expert on Al Jazeera International, Huda TV, Islamic Open University, Mercy Mission, and Bayina TV. Sister Halil is an instructor for Ilmflix and Khalam Institute. She was the first female to host a program for Al Fajr TV called With Halil, which combines the principle of psychology and Islam to help people reach their full potential and overcome their challenges. She does Skype therapy sessions with people from all around the world, saving marriages, building self-esteem, and helping individuals in all their relationships. Sister Halil is an internationally published writer and counselor for the website www.muslimmatters.org. She received her ijazah for the recitation of the Quran in Egypt. She was recently given the Icon Award representing America in Malaysia for her contribution in psychology and Islam. She has been married for, alhamdulillah, 19 years with 3 kids, ages 15, 12, and 10. So without wasting further time, I invite Sister Halil Banani to take over the mic.
All right. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for the introduction. And it's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Inna alhamdulillah. Nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh. Wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Amma ba'd. My congratulations to Islamic Online University for creating this one of the first mental health webinars, and I think it's a wonderful opportunity to gain information and to address topics that are so critical for us to understand. Our self-esteem, today it's about self-esteem, and it is so critical in everything that we do. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, I work with individuals, as the brother said, from all around the world. And what I have seen, the underlying problem in majority of the cases that I have seen is a low self-esteem. We find that whether it's in marital issues, whether it is problems in the workplace or any other relationship, it stems from having a low self-esteem. So I think that it's very critical to address this. I'm going to talk to you about the importance of self-esteem, how it's developed, and how we can, inshallah, strengthen it, because it's never too late. Even if you find that you're struggling with this, even if you're an adult, you can work on it and change it, because I've seen a lot of success stories, alhamdulillah, with my clients, and I hope that you'll benefit from this. Allah tells us in the Quran, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله لا يغير ما بقوم حتى يغيروا ما بأنفسهم. That surely Allah does not change the condition of the people until they change their own condition. Okay? So there are many things that in your life you may want to change. You may want to have a better relationship. You may want to have more success. You may want to have more influence, be able to do dawah more, maybe increase your knowledge and become a teacher. Whatever it is that you want to improve in your life, you have to start with yourself. You have to look within, and Allah is telling us that when you invest in yourself, when you get to know yourself, that's when Allah is going to put barakat. He's going to put blessings, and He's going to change your condition, inshallah. So this This ayah, I feel, is a very motivating force. As a therapist and dealing with people who are always coming to me for wanting to change, I always use this verse to remind them that we really have to start within. And when we start looking and we're honest with ourselves, right? Because a lot of times people are in a state of denial. They're in a state of denial. They don't acknowledge what their strengths and weaknesses are. Maybe they only focus on their strengths. And it is important to be honest and to recognize where are your strengths and where are your weaknesses. And if one of your weaknesses is your self-esteem, that you don't feel good about yourself, you're always maybe beating yourself up, you don't feel like you have the capacity to succeed, then this is something that we need to address, because acknowledging that you have to work on something, you're halfway there. Right? And that's something I always tell my clients, that if the fact that you're just coming and getting the help, this is acknowledging that you have there's an issue, there's a problem, and you are halfway there in resolving it. So just be very honest with yourself and evaluate yourself. What we see, that self-esteem is that feeling of worthiness, being valuable, feeling that you have something special to offer. And what it does is that it gives you a sense of confidence. When you have self-esteem, it gives you that strength, it gives you that motivation to do things, to get out of your comfort zone. Too many people spend their time in a small little cocoon. They are always wanting to be in their comfort zone, and they don't expand. They don't allow themselves to have new experiences because they lack that self-esteem. So having that confidence, it gives you also a sense of optimism. It gives you that feeling that you can have a positive impact, you are capable, and so it really affects. And as a mu'min, we're always supposed to be optimistic, right? In Surah Yusuf, ayah 87, this is it's a beautiful verse talking about how you need to be optimistic, because if you're not optimistic, okay, not being optimistic is equated with disbelief. So we want to always make sure as a mu'min we're optimistic, we feel good about ourselves and about our opportunities. The second thing is that it helps you to succeed. All right? Thank you for changing the slide. It helps you to succeed. So first of all, we say it gives you confidence, and then it helps you to succeed because you start believing in yourself, right? Have you ever had that moment when someone asks you to do something and you feel like, can I do this? I don't know if I can do this. I remember the first time, I think it was almost 20 years ago, the first time I was asked to come up at the masjid. I think there was a sisters conference, and they wanted me to be the MC. And it just took me by surprise, and I thought, can I do this? Am I set up to do this? And a friend of mine gave me that courage. She said, you do it, and the strength will come to you. Allah will give you the strength. And I feel that just having that ability to say, yes, I will do it, like I said, expanding your comfort zone, it helps you to succeed because you believe in yourself. The third thing is that it improves your relationship. Now, how does it improve a relationship? Like I said earlier, majority of the problems that I see, whether it's marital issues or individual, whether it's, whatever is happening in these with my clients, I find that the underlying problem is a low self-esteem. Because when someone doesn't feel good about themselves, how do they act? When they don't feel good about themselves, they feel very threatened by other people. And that's why you find a lot of difficulties when it comes to dealing with, mother-in-laws and sister-in-laws, right? Those are big issues. I know that in the class that I do on emotional healing, anytime these two topics come up, we have loads of discussions about it because everyone feels the sense of whether it's rivalry, whether it's jealousy, or sometimes it's that feeling of being intimidated by another person. And so if you have self-confidence, it's about feeling good about who you are, right? It's feeling good about who you are. Then you're no longer intimidated. I find a lot of times with husband and wife, there is that sense of possessiveness, that sense of jealousy. Now there is the beta, which is, it's a good positive jealousy to have. We should have beta for our spouse and they should have it for us. And I'm not referring to that. I'm talking to that excessive jealousy, that wanting to prevent your spouse from moving ahead because you are so intimidated or you feel so inadequate. And I think that that's really important to address. So if you don't have this issue, when you feel good about yourself, you're not going to be easily intimidated by other people, and you're going to have a more open attitude, and you're going to accept people into your heart rather than feeling defensive and feeling that someone is going to take your position or take the attention away from you. Another benefit of self-esteem is that it's a path to inner peace. It is a path to inner peace, and you find that those individuals who don't have the self-confidence, they're constantly beating themselves up, and it's very sad. And I've worked with many young brothers and sisters who are really struggling. They don't like who they are. There's actually self-loathing. There's that self-hatred, and they try to harm themselves. I have a lot of clients, who when they lack self-esteem and they lack that sense of purpose or sense of value, then what they end up doing, sometimes they end up hurting themselves or they try to commit suicide. And you find that they're always in turmoil. They're always in turmoil because they don't have that sense of self-esteem. So when you do establish this, when you start feeling that you are worthwhile, because Allah put you on this earth, and we can't be so self-critical. A lot of times when we are self-critical, when we are expecting perfection, when we are really beating ourselves up for every little mistake, then what happens is that we start having a lot of inner turmoil, and the peace just goes away. So we really have to be compassionate. We have to be nurturing to ourselves. We have to be like that encouraging coach, not the one who yells and screams and says nasty things, right? It's about being nurturing. How would you feel? I wrote an article about this on Muslim Matters, and it was about having, being at peace with yourself. And, I describe a scenario. Imagine you're walking in the masjid and you see a brother beating up on another brother. The brother is on the ground. He's obviously hurt. Maybe he fell. Maybe he tripped. And instead of picking him up and helping him, the other brother starts kicking him and punching him and pushing him back to the ground. How would you feel about this brother? You would be like, you need to stop this. You would probably go in and try to break up the fight. Now, a lot of times we're doing that with ourselves. We may fall, we may trip, we may make a mistake, and then what do? Instead of picking ourselves up, gaining the courage and saying, I'm gonna get back on my feet, we just start beating ourselves up. We start saying, I'm so stupid. I made a terrible mistake. I can't do anything right. Does that sound familiar? Do any of you say this to yourself? I know that a lot of my clients end up saying things like this to themselves, and they feel horrible. And it's like a movie that is playing in their head over and over again. What if I tell you that there is an individual, okay, maybe a friend comes and complains to you and says, you know what, I'm watching this movie and it makes me feel horrible. It is making me sad. I'm crying. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. And I watch this movie like 5 to 6 times a day. What would you tell them? You would say, stop watching the movie. Break the CD. Don't even watch it, right? And this is exactly what we do with our mistakes. This is what we do. We keep replaying the same old movie over and over and over again. I actually have a technique, a way of erasing a negative memory. It is really effective. I had an individual, I was in Egypt, and this lady was from Bosnia, and she came to my halaqah. I was in my home, and she came and she was very distressed. And one of the sisters came to me and she said, she experienced the war in Bosnia. She was traumatized. She saw some horrible things, and she can't sleep at night. She's very stressed out. And so I told her, okay, let's do this exercise. We did an exercise, and within like 3-4 minutes, that just went away, alhamdulillah. So if we are obsessed with an event in the past or something that happened to us, or we blame ourselves and we can't forgive ourselves, right? Then that is going to lead to inner turmoil. The Prophet ﷺ says, none of you will have faith, iman, until he wishes for his brother what he likes for himself. I love this hadith. This is reported by Bukhari. And I feel that if we applied this one hadith, the world would be such a better place. And this hadith cannot be implemented unless you have that sense of self-esteem, right? Because if you feel good about yourself, you're going to want goodness for others. What I find is that individuals, if they lack experience or they lack success or whatever it is that they're lacking, they're not going to be happy about the success of another person. Only a person who is secure can apply this hadith, and that's why it's so important. So it is not just about, okay, I'm going to build my self-esteem because I want to be successful. It's not an egotistical approach, and it's not narcissistic, okay? And I'm going to address the difference between arrogance and narcissism and self-esteem. So it's not about that. It is about feeling good about who you are and being able to see other people's success. And that way you have the sense of compassion because you love yourself, you can love other people. When people don't love themselves, and I've worked with individuals that they have deeply rooted hatred, and we're going to talk about where this stems from, but when they have that, they report to me that they feel a lot of jealousy. When they're, let's say, on Facebook and they see someone has, let's say, achieved a degree. They got a degree. They got a promotion. They got a new home. Whatever it is, they say, I feel so much jealousy inside. And so it burns me up inside. So I say, SubhanAllah, if you're feeling good about yourself, then you will not have that negative feeling. And just a side note here about jealousy, and I know that all of you tuning in, inshallah, are students of knowledge, and I'm sure that you know that jealousy eats you up, and it's such a negative thing. And I like to look at it from this perspective. Jealousy, when you think that someone should not have what you want, or they have something and you feel envious towards them, this is very dangerous in that you are questioning Allah's wisdom. And although none of us would have the audacity to say this, and we say astaghfirullah, but none of us would have the audacity that I know better than Allah. But when you become jealous, when you're upset about someone else's success or someone else's what they have earned or what they have, you're literally questioning that. And you're having the audacity to question Allah's wisdom, and so that becomes very shaky ground. So we have to be really, really careful about that. And the way to avoid that altogether is feeling good about yourself and realizing that there is a beautiful hikmah in everything that happens. There's hikmah in not having things. There's hikmah in certain trials, and there's mercy in those difficulties. And if we recognize that, we won't sit there feeling sad and depressed and look at other people's lives and think, oh, they're so lucky. But I can tell you, as a therapist, as a counselor, looking into the lives of, hundreds and thousands of people, you know what? I would never, ever wish that. I would never assume, just looking at someone's polished exterior, wishing for their life, because you have no idea what they might be struggling with. I have seen picture-perfect individuals in the spotlight, individuals that appear to be happy, appear to be successful, and yet you don't know the inner turmoil. So you don't know what they're tested with. And so I think it's really important, and this is again like a side note, because I think a lot of times we start feeling insecure about ourselves because we're comparing. We're comparing. We're constantly looking at our neighbor, at the sister, the brother, especially those of you who are students. I've had students who come and do therapy, and they tell me how they feel so anxious when they get a lower grade, right? I mean, it's good to be ambitious, right? It's good to strive to be the best, but you don't want to always be comparing yourself. You don't always want to be competing. Only compete in the good deeds, right? وَالسَّابِقُونَ السَّابِقُونَ أُولَئِكَ الْمُقَرَّبُونَ فِي جَنَّاتِ النَّعِيمِ. So we want to compete only in the good deeds, right? So you see your brother is waking up for tahajjud, and you see that extra nur. A lot of times I see the sisters, I see extra nur. I'm like, tell me your beauty secret. Come on, tell me. Has it been extra tahajjud? Are you memorizing? So we should get motivated with that. Say, oh wow, but this sister has memorized so much. I want to memorize. This sister has gained knowledge. I want to memorize. So we need to be competing in these things and get motivated to increase our ibadah, but not to compare about the worldly things, and not to compare our looks and what we've achieved, or like your spouse or children, because what ends up happening is that it will decrease our self-esteem. Okay, so as far as how the self-esteem is developed, okay, self-esteem is developed. It starts off in your childhood and then throughout your life. So early in your childhood, it has to do with, if we can go to the next slide, please. In your childhood, it has to do with how people treated you. How did they treat you, right? How did your parents treat you? Were you valued? Were your needs taken care of? A lot happens. Those first 2 years, they're very formative. And I always advise individuals to give extra attention. Yes, this was right. To give extra attention. Be very, very attentive to your children's needs. Sometimes people have this mentality, it's like, oh, we're going to spoil them. But that first year especially, tend to every little cry. Make them feel comfortable. Make them feel that their needs are important. Because if you're not tending to them at that critical stage, they're going to feel like they don't really matter, that they have no control, and it's going to stay with them throughout their life. So I know it seems like, oh my gosh, something from, when I was potty training or when I was nursing, all that influences me now? Absolutely. And so we really have to be careful as parents, right? I mean, as adults, we're learning about it, and alhamdulillah, whatever happened, I'm sure your parents did the best that they possibly knew, right? No one sets out to damage their kids in any way, but we all end up in some way or another having shortcomings, right? And so we have to be forgiving, and we have to be understanding, but we have to learn for when we have kids that we address all of their needs and we develop the self-esteem, because right now we're learning about it for ourselves, but I'm taking it that next level, that how are you going to take this knowledge and then apply it to your own kids? If you're an educator, if you're an administrator, and somehow interact with people, how do you raise their self-esteem? You don't want to crush them. So how you were tended to, how you were dealt with, how you were treated, very important. This is something I'm very grateful for my parents. May Allah reward them. They always treated me with the utmost respect, and they always made me feel valuable, and they always asked for my opinion and made me feel counted. And so I remember when I would go to other people's homes, and when they overlook, a lot of times you overlook the children. It's like even if you're serving, you will serve and then skip over the kids, and there's this sense of like, okay, you're not as valuable. And I think that always got to me, because I was like, my parents made me feel so valuable, and what is it with them? And so you have to instill that in your children. And then throughout your life, the self-esteem is affected. Whether you achieve, whether it's academically, and this is something I always ask my clients when I get a background information. I find out because it tells me a lot about their personality. I go all the way back and very briefly find out about what their relationship was with their parents. If they felt neglected, if there was physical abuse, if there was sexual abuse, if there was a broken home, whatever it was, that will definitely have an impact. Now, I'm not saying you're doomed. If that has happened to you, you can definitely overcome it. I have seen so many individuals, mashallah, overcome their obstacles. But it's just a matter of acknowledging it and understanding it, right? And I also ask about their sibling relationship with parents, and I also ask about their academic success, right? Because that really gives a person, if someone has had academic success, then they feel like I am capable, right? And then so there's this sense of confidence and achievement. I have certain clients who will tell me that, they never really did good at school. They always got in trouble. And so that affects their sense of what they're capable of. And so we need to acknowledge that. And then also social success, right? How many friends did you have? Were you well liked? Were you teased? Were you bullied? Because all of these incidents in your life will leave an impact. It leaves an imprint on your heart and on your self-esteem. And you may not understand it. Right now, you may be feeling like, I don't know why I never feel good about myself. Some people would say, I don't feel pretty. And they could be gorgeous, right? But they don't feel pretty. Why? Because somebody teased them. Maybe in 4th grade, someone called them, oh, you're fat, or you've got big ears. Oh my God, your hair is frizzy. Whatever it was, it just kind of, they internalized it. And it also has to do with what your parents tell you, right? And this is really critical. If the words that they said, the label, the assessment, this will leave a very lasting impact on how you feel about yourself. So we need to really be watchful as parents, as caretakers, as educators. We really need to be watchful, and we need to make sure what we say to the youth, how we assess them. We need to be very careful with those labels, and joking, right? وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ الَّذِي جَمَعَ مَالًا وَعَدَّدَهُ. So this is saying, وَيْلٌ لِكُلِّ هُمَزَةٍ لُمَزَةٍ. Woe to those who joke and who tease and who just, there's sarcasm, right? So we have to be very, very careful with that, even with our own children. Sometimes parents are brutal with their kids. They tease them about certain body parts, and they will never get over that. They will just say, oh, look at his big old ears, he's Dumbo. Look at she has a big belly. I had a lady, she was in her 50s. She was crying in my office. And, you would think, what are you crying about? What happened? You'd think maybe she has a terminal illness. Maybe she's had a fight with her husband. No. You know what she was crying about? She was crying because when she was 8 years old, her mother would call her fat. She kept telling her, you're fat, you're fat, you're fat. And guess what? She was extremely overweight. She was obese. And so it didn't help. It's not like she became super skinny because her mom kept telling her that, but it affected her self-esteem. And so we have to make sure that we're not damaging our children and the people we come in contact with. Sometimes we may label them as like, you lazy bum. You can't do anything right. You're worthless. What good are you? You can't do anything. And a lot of my clients tell me that is what goes through their head. And I'm going to talk to you about how you can improve your self-esteem. And the biggest obstacle I face with that is that their self-talk, that inner dialogue, is the voice of their caretakers. Whatever they were told, whatever that people labeled them as, assessed them as, that is what keeps going through their head. It doesn't matter. If they were told you're a lazy bum, you can't do anything right. They might be a successful businessman right now. They may be making a lot of money, but you know what? It doesn't matter. They have internalized that. I had an Ivy League student. She was so successful. She had a good job, religious. She had it all, mashallah. But guess what? She was so depressed, she was almost suicidal. I said, why? You have everything, mashallah. And she said, I was never good enough for my parents. I was always inadequate. Never, never, ever good enough. So as parents, we need to make sure that we're making our kids feel that they're good enough. They don't have to get the straight A's because some people just don't have the capacity. If they've done their best, that should be good enough, right? And if we need to accept them for the way they look, the way they act, what they're capable of. Because if you make them feel inadequate, let's say you want them in a particular field and they don't pursue that field, they're going to feel so worthless, right? So it is all about what people have said to you in the past that starts forming your self-esteem at a very, very early age. I mean, when you're 1, 2, whatever you're hearing, whatever people are doing with you, if you're being loved and cared for or versus being neglected and abused, all that affects your self-esteem. But something to be hopeful, because some of you maybe all this talk is bringing back a lot of bad memories, right? And I know that a lot of my clients suffer with bad memories from their childhood, but don't despair, okay? Because this is a conference about instilling hope. This talk in particular, I want to instill hope, and I want you to remember that the past does not equal the present. I'm going to repeat that. The past does not equal the present. So just because you had a very troubling childhood doesn't mean that you have to remain that way. It doesn't mean that you have to play the victim role. So there's always hope to make the changes. And remember what I started the verse with is that if you change yourself, Allah doesn't change your condition until you change yourself. So you change yourself. You work on yourself. You make a decision that you're going to improve your self-esteem. You're going to work hard, and then Allah will make it easy, inshallah. There's 7 components of self-esteem. First of all, it's your personality, your mannerism, your sense of humor, how you interact with others. What I'm recently seeing is a lot of diagnosis of Asperger's, which is a very mild form of autism. And it's kind of like this social awkwardness and not picking up on social cues. So if someone has a good, strong personality and they know how to interact with others, that gives them a sense of self-esteem. Spirituality, right? Spirituality is also very critical. Being true to what you believe. Being true to what you believe and having congruence between your beliefs and your actions. I can't tell you how many people have come in, as clients, and they were like, they're practicing Muslims who have done a really big mistake, right? They have gone astray. They've made a huge mistake because they followed their desire, and so it crushes their self-esteem. They feel horrible, right? And then, so we're reminded in Surah Al-Qasas, which is Surah number 28, ayah number 50. Okay. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. وَمَنْ أَضَلُّ مِمَّنِ اتَّبَعَ هَوَاهُ بِغَيْرِ هُدًى مِّنَ اللَّهِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَهْدِي الْقَوْمَ الظَّالِمِينَ. And it's saying, and who is more astray than the one who follows his desires without guidance from Allah? Indeed, Allah does not guide the wrongdoing people. So, we have to be really careful that we don't follow our desires because we think we're making ourselves happy. We think we are satisfying ourselves. But then at the end result is that really that low self-esteem. A lot of young brothers who are addicted to pornography, some sisters as well, unfortunately, addicted to pornography. Every time they watch it, they feel so bad about themselves. And they report that their self-esteem drops. And it's like 0, sometimes negative. When they cave into their temptation and they go out and they commit some haram acts, that really affects the self-esteem. So we have to be careful with that. So going back actually to the last slide that we had up, the 7 components of self-esteem. Okay, not back, I think forward, please. The 7 components of self-esteem. So we said it is personality. So how you deal, yes, thank you. The personality, spirituality, so having congruence, making sure that if you believe that being truthful is important, and so you need to remain truthful. You need to be truthful, because if you believe in it and you don't apply it, then you're going to feel really bad about yourself. Also like about the prayer, you know that it's critical, but you don't pray your prayers. That's going to affect your self-esteem. Your looks have an important part in it as well. Feeling content with your looks, right? Everything that you have been given is from Allah. And I know that sisters struggle with this. Sisters, I know how you're bombarded with so many images telling you what you should look like, what size you should be. And it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. But you need to really be careful about being sucked into this, right? Because whatever you've been given is from Allah. And one of the ways I work with clients, some of them are anorexic, they're size 0 and they still think they're fat. And, I tell them, whatever, when you look in the mirror and you complain about the way you look, you criticize the way that you look, who are you criticizing? They always say, myself. I'm like, no, you're criticizing Allah. You're criticizing Allah because He's the one who created you. So if it's something that you can take control of, maybe you had a couple of babies, you have 10, 20, 30 extra pounds you need to lose, well, let's make an effort and look our best. We want to avoid 2 extremes. We don't want to be obsessed with our looks, and we don't want to just let it go. Sometimes people, as they become religious, they're like, you know what? I am abandoning the dunya. I don't care about my looks. I'm putting on the hijab, the niqab, whatever it is, and I don't care. That's not important. Well, honestly, our body is an amana, and it is important. And our spouse is important for them to be attracted to us. So we can't just let it go and say, Khalas, I'm doing away with looks and dunya and all of that. We still have to look good for ourselves first and foremost, because it does affect our self-esteem, for our spouses. And honestly, as an ambassador of Islam, when you present yourself and you are fit and you are healthy, you have a big impact on individuals, right? So we can work on that, inshallah. And this next one is a sense of purpose. I find that individuals who don't have a sense of purpose in their life, they become suicidal. They become deeply depressed. It's like those moms who they devoted their whole life to their husband and to their kids. And once the kids are grown and they move out, khalas, they feel like my life is over. That's not right. And that's why I always encourage women who, cherish their role as mother and wife. Okay, those are amazing roles, and it could be your path to Jannah. In addition to those roles, you have to have a sense of purpose. You have to be, whether you're like gaining knowledge, whether you're volunteering, whether you do something with your life, writing, contributing, doing something that gives you that sense of, you know what, my life is more than just the cooking, the cleaning, and the tending to my husband and kids. When you have that vision, when you have that sense of purpose, then, whether your kids, they can get, move out, they can get their education, they can get married, and you're not going to feel so insecure. A lot of times when moms don't have that sense of purpose, they become so clingy to their kids, right? They become very clingy and needy and depressed. So we need to take care of that about ourselves. Then there's that sense of, so we said sense of purpose, sense of belonging and acceptance. It's so important to be a part of, a group. That's why sisterhood, the brotherhood, going to the masajid. And this is what I miss when I was in the Middle East for the past 8 years, alhamdulillah. We didn't feel the same sense of brotherhood and sisterhood in the sense of like in the masajid. Definitely I experienced it with a lot of the people that I met, alhamdulillah. I'm talking about the masjid was just a place you pray and leave. But here in the States, alhamdulillah, what you sense is that you go to the masjid and it is a community. It's like your extended family. And so that brotherhood, that sisterhood, that feeling of belonging is really important. And the sense of competence that you can do something right that you have the ability to do something well. If you're a mathematician, if you're an artist, if you have the ability to write, whatever it is, whatever skill you have, that gives you self-esteem. And that's why we have to nurture that in our children to make them be competent in different things, because that makes them feel like, I'm good at this. I excel. And then it's also being able to influence others. When you're able to have some level of impact, a positive impact, how wonderful does that feel? Maybe you can encourage your friend to start praying. Maybe you can encourage your friend to start putting on the hijab. You have an impact on the ummah in some way, in the masjid, in your school, whatever it is. Being able to influence others in a positive way definitely builds your self-esteem. So now I'm going to talk to you about how to increase your self-esteem. How to increase your self-esteem. First of all, it's about your self-talk. What do you say to yourself? What are you saying to yourself? And that is like 700 words a minute, and we have to be very aware of that, and we have to make sure we're saying positive things. Because if you're saying to yourself, I'm horrible, I'm stupid, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I can't do anything, if you're saying those things, you're not going to feel good about who you are. And like I said, the self-talk has to do a lot with what your parents and caretakers told you. Second, surround yourself with positive people. Third is create opportunities to have small successes. So whether it's, take a course, y'all are taking courses, mashallah, here. I'm sure with every class you take, there's that feeling of accomplishment. I did it, one class down, maybe for you to go, right? And then start a hobby. Have something, maybe if you like to paint, you like to draw, you like to, build things, and then maybe writing articles, whatever it is, just give yourself opportunities for small little successes, and that definitely builds self-esteem. Volunteer. Volunteering is a great way to get people, to give them that sense of purpose and to get them to feel good about themselves. A lot of clients who come to me who are very depressed or suicidal, one of the first things I tell them to do, go out there and help someone else. They're like, what? I can barely help myself. I'm depressed. I can't get out of bed. I feel horrible. I'm like, even more so. That is why you need to go and help other people. Because the state of when you feel down about yourself and you feel depressed, the nature of depression is that you're self-consumed. You got to step outside of yourself. You got to go out there, see people who are sick, see people who don't have a home. And this is something, when I was living in Egypt, we got exposed to this. My children got exposed to this. They saw people living. They were homeless. They were going into trash cans digging up for food. There were some people who were they're ill, and they were in these homes and the orphans. So all of this, when you see that and you help them, then it gives you that sense of, wow, I can make a difference. I'm valuable because I'm valuable to someone else. Sometimes a person doesn't feel it from the inside, so they have to start by feeling it from the outside, making other people thinking that, okay, you're valuable, you can contribute. So all of you, I want you to sign up for any volunteering that there is in Islamic Online University. That's a wonderful way to get yourself, to build your self-esteem. And then look your best, right? So I mentioned how the importance of being presentable, right? I'm not saying to live up to any kind of ideal. Be your best, right? And then always and dress in a very presentable way, because we're all ambassadors of Islam. And when we take the time to look our best, then that is going to make quite an impression on others. So that's important. And the last thing I wanted to mention, I want to make sure we have enough time for question and answer, is that self-esteem. We're going to talk about self-esteem versus arrogance and narcissism. So a lot of times what I find with especially students of knowledge, they shy away from self-esteem and confidence. There's that mentality of being humble, which is definitely an important characteristic to have, and that prevents them from wanting to build their confidence. So they feel there's a contradiction. It's like, okay, that being confident means being arrogant or being narcissistic, and I don't want that. I want to be humble. And they start saying things about themselves. I'm not good enough, I'm not knowledgeable enough. Now, how do we how do we settle this, right? It's important to recognize that self-esteem is not about feeling superior to others, okay? So arrogance is about, I'm great, you're not, okay? And so it's not about that. Self-esteem, it's about appreciating what you have been given. So it is more an act of gratitude. It is an act of gratitude. When you look at it that way, then it doesn't feel uncomfortable anymore. It's not about saying, I'm great, look at me. It's about, alhamdulillah, Allah has given me this talent. Allah has given me this opportunity. If I'm not grateful, that's a form of kufr. Kufr bi ni'mah, right? It's like, not recognizing your blessings. So we want to make sure that we show gratitude for the gifts that Allah has given us. We need to feel gratitude and appreciate it, and that's what gives you the self-esteem. It's not about being arrogant, boastful, right? And it's about feeling secure and safe. When you have self-esteem, then it makes you feel safe to interact with others. Sometimes I see individuals, they're so insecure that the slightest thing will trigger a lot of negative emotions, right? So we really need to overcome that. Feel safe. Feel secure about who you are. Don't be threatened. Don't be so scared. Don't be so threatened. Don't be so angered by other people. So it's about getting that sense of peace, that inner peace, right? هو الذي أنزل السكينة في قلوب المؤمنين. So it's like Allah sends that peace, but you have to work on yourself first. So the peace is brought when you're working on yourself, and we said that Allah doesn't change your condition until you change yourself. So I really hope that we are amongst we are the people that we learn and we apply. سمعنا وأطعنا, right? Allah says in Surah Al-Zumar, الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه أولئك الذين هداهم الله وأولئك هم أولو الألباب, who listen to speech and follow the best of it. Those are the ones Allah has guided, and those are the people of understanding. So I pray that we can be those individuals who can take this information, learn to improve ourselves, apply it with our children, and have a really positive impact. Jazakumullah khairan. I believe this leaves us 10 minutes. 10 minutes for maybe some questions. Are there some questions coming in?
Jazakallah khair, Sister Hale, for the enlightening talk. Yes, it's time for question and answer session. MashaAllah, very, very nice techniques Sister presented, and a very beautiful hadith. None of you will have faith until he wishes for his brother what he likes for himself. MashaAllah. And 7 components of self-esteem were amazing, MashaAllah. And many, many insights on how to increase self-esteem. Jazakallah khair, Sister Hale Banani, MashaAllah.
It was a pleasure.
So, MashaAllah. So we have a question here. How can a Muslim have self-esteem in a non-Muslim country where Muslims are hated and people will avoid and persecute even for a beard hijab?
Right. Well, that's challenging, and I think that's why it's so important that as an individual, first of all, you increase your knowledge, because the more knowledge you have, the stronger you become. You realize that there's consequences, there's rewards, and if you think about the persecutions that are that the predecessors had to go through, the way that the things that they went through makes us have the patience, because getting dirty looks here and there, and we can overcome that, inshallah. And what I would recommend is having a strong sisterhood. If you attend classes, if you go to the masajid, try to get strength in numbers. And so you have to build that connection and feeling proud of what Islam stands for. And, don't tune in to things like Fox News and things that are constantly berating the Muslims. Try to surround yourself with positivity, because if you expose yourself to that enough times, it will affect you. Now, one more thing I wanted to say, as far as the beard and the hijab, I find that it's all about how you carry yourself. And if you carry yourself with that confidence, you wear it not with your head down and feeling shy and embarrassed, but you wear it like, Alhamdulillah, I'm carrying the banner of La ilaha illallah, and I'm happy about that. And when you have that attitude and you smile and you face that maybe the negativity with kindness and confidence, then you find that people switch. I experience this on a daily basis where there's, this negativity, and then you try to melt their heart by just either kindness and by being strong. You have to be a strong individual, inshallah.
Okay. Well, we have other question. What can I do immediately if I have suicidal thoughts?
Okay, suicidal thoughts, it's actually very, very common. You would be surprised the number of practicing Muslims who have this. And sometimes people, they know it's haram, so they will say, no, I would never think about suicide. Hello? Are you still there? Hello?
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
I'm
sister,
sorry.
we are there. Yeah.
I saw something happen with the screen. Okay, so, but in reality, many Muslims, they think about death. And so if you're thinking that, oh, death is an escape and I wish I was gone, a lot of times it's because people are facing a lot of problems and they're overwhelmed and they think that killing themselves is an escape. But what I want to tell you, it is no escape, because right now you are seeing problems that you see, and it is for a limited amount of time. But the problem of, if you, la samahallah, take your own life, then what it does is that this is eternal damnation, and you don't want that. You don't want that. It is for a temporary period of time. Try to say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Get support from sisters. Don't be shy to tell them. Tell somebody. Get help. If you need professional help, get it, because you can overcome it. And those thoughts, don't ignore it. Don't ignore it in the sense that if it's coming up, that means you need to address it. So I would recommend addressing it with a professional so that it doesn't increase. And really make dua. When you're in sujood, ask Allah to remove those thoughts. It is the shaitan trying to, get you to be weak. And we need you. Every single one of you is valuable, and you are put here for a purpose. So, imagine someone giving you a car, and then you sit there and you put a sledgehammer through it. Can you imagine that? I mean, what kind of gratitude is that? Allah has given you this life for a purpose, and He wants you here for a reason. So you just have to find that purpose and have that hope, and inshallah overcome these thoughts. Are there any other questions?
Okay, Jazakallah khair, sister. Yeah, we have another question. How to overcome negative emotions and negative thoughts?
Okay. That in itself will be probably an hour discussion because it is, it's something that is so rampant, and it's so common for people to have the negative thoughts. Most people are negative. The self-talk I told you about, 85% of the people, their thoughts are negative. So number one, be aware. Become aware of it. Many of my clients don't even know. They're like, no, I don't talk to myself. So they don't even know about the self-talk. So that awareness is number one. Number two is stop the negative. You know what I do with one of my clients? He was really, really negative, and he just had very low self-esteem. So I said, put a rubber band and then zap yourself each time you have a negative thought. Within a week, he's like, wow, this negative self-talk is gone because it hurts, right? So try to do that. Try to stop the negative self-talk. The third thing, and I usually do this 1 week at a time. First week, awareness of your self-talk. Second week, take away the negative self-talk. Third week, replace the negative self-talk with positive self-talk. So inshallah you can do that, but it does take training, and you may need some additional help.
Okay, Jazakallah khair, sister. We have another question. What should we do when others look down at us?
Okay. When others look down on us, okay, it's really important to know that you give permission to people either mistreating you or looking down at you. You somehow, whether it's not verbal, but through your body language, through your action, you are allowing somehow you're allowing this to happen. And you may think, no, I don't want to allow this. But in reality, if you look deep enough, you find that because of a lack of self-esteem, because you show yourself maybe as weak or you don't feel confident about yourself, another person and an individual that probably is pretty insecure themselves, and the only way they can feel good about themselves is to feel arrogant and look down at someone else. So you have to try to build that self-esteem and not be affected by it. Don't allow the negativity to penetrate, right? And you need to just, as you build your self-esteem, you find that fewer people can get away with doing that. You got to just become stronger as an individual, believe in yourself more, and realize that somewhere, whether it's in your nonverbal communication, whether it is your posture, whether it's your tone of voice, you're being too meek and too subtle, and so people can dominate over you. You are expressing to others, you are allowed to bully me. You are allowed to take advantage of me. So be careful with that. It's very subtle, so you have to see what it is and try to overcome it, inshallah.
Esteem or confidence, alhamdulillah, but I'm an introvert, so I take my time to initiate a conversation or talk to someone. This sometimes tends to give an image of me being arrogant or haughty. So is there a way to overcome this and be a little more sociable?
All right. There's nothing wrong with being an introvert as long as you're comfortable with it. Now, if people are having, you're giving off this impression that you're arrogant, what I recommend is smiling more, right? Because if someone is arrogant, they won't smile at others. So try, if it's hard for you to strike up a conversation, a lot of shy people are seen as being stuck up, right? So I know that tends to be a pattern. So you can try to smile more, and then you just need to train yourself, right? I mean, I remember I used to be very shy. I was very shy, like maybe in middle school, and I kept working on myself and getting myself out of my comfort zone. So, you give yourself little exercises. You think, okay, I'm going to work on this. I'm going to strike up a conversation. And maybe each day you can practice, even with someone that's standing behind you in line, with the cashier, with, just build that confidence. You said you are confident, but overcome a little bit of that shyness by practicing with people who are just, they're individuals that you may not run into again. So it's kind of safe, right? So if you mess up, it's not a big deal. As you build as you continue that habit, then it will be easier with the people that you want to develop relationships. And that way, when you're smiling and you're initiating conversation, they won't think that you're arrogant.
Jazakallah khair, sister. Another question. Will shaitan, Iblis, will be considered as someone who had low self-esteem because of the negative emotions such as jealousy, etc.?
I think it was the arrogance that led him to disobey Allah. It was that feeling like I'm so much better, right? And that's why I classify like arrogance as like a sense of superiority. He felt I'm made out of fire. I'm so much better, right? And so I think it's extreme. It was extreme arrogance as far as classifying, with shaitan. However, a lot of time when individuals, if we're thinking about individuals, they feel jealous because of their low self-esteem. But in the case of shaitan, it was complete arrogance. Wallahu a'lam. Is there another question?
Jazakallah khair. Well, the question is, what if I don't know my talent?
What if you don't know your talent? And many people don't, right? So you need to expose yourself to a lot of different opportunities. It's kind of like I had a friend of mine who's, her daughter is about to go to college. And she's like, I have no idea. I said, what are you going to study? She's like, I have no idea. I don't know what I'm going to study. I don't know what I'm good at. And I said, you know what? It's okay. You just have to expose yourself. Like maybe take different classes, and whether it's, whether it's different hobbies or different courses, and see what is it that is interesting to you, right? And they say the best job is something that you would be willing to do for free, right? I mean, I know all throughout high school, I was giving advice to people all the time. It's just something I loved. I loved helping people. And people just would line up and sit next to me and ask for advice. So it was something that I did, and I loved doing it, and I would have done it for free. And so you have to find what is it you're passionate about. What is it that you're willing to work hours and hours, and whether you get paid for it or not, and then just give yourself different opportunities, inshallah.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left, inshallah. We'll take a couple of questions. The question is, can one improve his esteem if he lacks money?
Can someone improve their self-esteem if they lack self-esteem? Is that what it is? No, lacks money. Lacks money. It has nothing to do with money. Self-worth is not your net worth, okay? So you could have zero in the bank account. That's why a lot of times I tell my clients, don't make your self-worth a number, okay? It's not your size. It's not your GPA. It's not the grade you got on the last test. It's not the amount you have in the bank account. A lot of times we assess ourselves based on these set of numbers. And if the numbers are off, whoa, that's it. You feel horrible, right? So I don't think that self-esteem has anything to do with money, because you can feel very confident, very happy with yourself, and not have it. And I saw a lot of examples of that. Let's say living in Egypt, people, they were workers and they hardly had anything, and you saw such gratitude and such, they're capable individuals. So it's not about the amount of money you have. It's just about feeling good about what you have to offer, feeling good about the fact that you have Allah. And if you think about every single thing that you're given, right? I did a talk on gratitude, and you can look it up on YouTube, and it's on gratitude. And I did a little bit of research about how much certain surgeries cost. It's like, let's say if you need to get your teeth, if your teeth is like worth $24,000, I don't know, something $30,000. If you have to have a heart transplant, it's like $80,000. Like your intestine, it's like some outrageous amount, like $800,000. And you just, I may be off with the numbers. You can refer to my video, but you just find that as a person, like your body in itself, Allah has given you like millions of dollars worth of blessings, right? So never ever feel like you're poor, even if you don't have money, because Allah, the guidance that you have, that's worth millions. Your body is worth millions. So you have so much to be grateful about, inshallah. Any other questions?
Fine. Here is an interesting question. What to do if your spouse continuously damages your self-esteem?
That falls under the category of verbal abuse, and we have to be really careful with that because it's very, very damaging. It's very damaging, and it really does affect. And sometimes you have verbal abuse, sometimes you have physical abuse, and they both have long-lasting damage. And you have to really evaluate. You have to evaluate the pros and cons of this relationship. If he's or I'm just assuming he could be a she. A lot of females do this as well. So if your spouse has a long list of, let's say, good characteristics, maybe they're a good spouse, they're a good parent, they're all of this, but this is like their one shortcoming. It can be something that you can overlook, and you can build your strength from maybe the community, from your friends, from strengthening your own talents. But if it's something that across the board, he or she, they're individuals that bring you down, that they make your life miserable. Life is not supposed to be miserable. So you really have to evaluate. It's hard to answer that without having more information, because I don't want to mislead you. I don't want to give you the wrong information. That would take an hour of therapy session to find out more about it to give you better advice. But just a quick advice: don't internalize the negativity. Okay, so just because the person tells you you're a loser, you can't do anything right, don't believe it. You can discard it, right? It's just like, crumbling up a piece of paper. It's like, oh, trash. You don't do that in front of them, but you don't internalize it. And I think when you put this shield around you, and this is what I tell a lot of my clients who have negative parents, negative spouses, and they can't take all of that. I say just, create this shield around you and pretend that, you won't allow things to penetrate.
Fine. Jazakallah khair, Sister Khalid. I think we have come to the end now. Time is running out. We have another session, Healthy and Unhealthy Relationships, by Sister Amira Edros, inshallah. So, Sister Khalid Banani, Jazakallah khair for joining us. That was really, really igniting session. And also I thank the participants, attendees for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you
and
very
with
much
that,
for
we'll
having
close
me
the
on,
session.
and
Is that fine,
thank you for the
Sister Khalid?
questions and for your attention. Jazakumullah khairan.
Alhamdulillah, Jazakallah khair. With that, we'll end the session, inshallah. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika.